right. Kyle Adams asks, what do you think about taking sentences or phrases and then modifying them instead of reading them aloud verbatim? For example, you read a sentence, then change it, possibly in several ways, noun, verb, etc. Examples: I'm afraid of drowning, I'm afraid of heights. She ate the cake, she will eat the cake. He told me he didn't get the email. She told me that she didn't send the email. Things like that. I feel like it's been pretty useful to develop mental independence of different words, phrases, as well as intuition for grammar and sentence structures. I found visualizing the modifications makes it even more useful. This has helped me not feel as mentally blocked when speaking and feel less like I'm tied to my native language. Wondering if this is something you've ever personally heard of or done before. Yes, I've done this before. I've seen other people do it. Personally, I don't do it anymore though. And that's because it's simply, although it's a good idea, if you do this, it's useful. It will help you learn the language. It's a good exercise. I just don't do it because the benefits you get from this, I get them from other exercises. So the exercises I use with language or with sentences, like using my own sentences. The main one is language islands. So then that's where I write my own sentences for specific situations. So instead of I'm afraid of drowning, I'm afraid of heights, I don't use that particular one because I'm not really afraid of many things. But she will eat the cake. Yeah, I like eating things. That's something that I will use more. But the point is, I'll prepare sentences for specific scenarios and conversations I will use, not based on sentences I see and then I don't modify sentences I encounter or on lists. I simply create my own for a conversation, right? And then I drill those so then I can use them when I am in conversation. That's one of the things I do. Another one is mass sentences. Use something like Glossica and then listen and repeat and do retrieval practice with thousands of sentences from a list so that I learn to understand all those sentences when I hear them, and also it helps me develop more speaking fluency as well. And the last thing would be sentence mining, which is taking interesting sentences from the input. Yes, I do input, comprehensible input. I take sentences. This I think Matt versus Japan made this technique popularized this. Basically, if I'm watching something or reading something, if I see something useful, I'll copy it, paste it on a list, and then that's another list of. Eventually, I have a long list of sentences that I found useful there that then I will use, and I drill those as well. And also, if you learn several languages, learning useful sentences. So all my useful sentences that all the sentence mining, all the useful sentences I encountered during the input, they go in the same list. Yeah, and you know why? Because, well, there are several benefits to this, and one of them being that I get to see different languages that I've learned, and that way I'm not just thinking in one language, but I see one of the languages I learned a couple of years ago. I still remember. It's reviewing is always good. It's partially for that, but it's mostly because if I find a sentence that's useful in one language, I'm listening to whatever, and they say something that's useful. It's very possible, it's very likely that the other languages that I will learn later will have an equivalent of that sentence. Yeah. So if you hear someone say, "I'm not interested in that," and then you translate it into "Das interessiert mich nicht," it works. So, for example, usually the same sentences that are the useful ones, if you translate them directly, they will work in most languages. So the more you add to the list, then you can, in the next language that you're learning, you can take all the sentences from all the other languages that you mined before, take the whole list, and you translate the whole list. And those sentences, some of them, if you translate them literally, they won't be, they don't sound really like the way native speakers do, but most of them will be pretty convincing. So it's a useful thing to do. So, long story short, the taking the sentences and modifying them, yeah, can be useful, but I think I've got better ways of doing it. But if it works for you, it's a matter of personal preference, honestly. If this works for you, then do it. It looks like a good idea, especially if you just take random sentences and create other random sentences with it. Maybe not that useful. It's still useful, but not that useful. But if you take random sentences and modify them to fit your own personal situation, or you create sentences that you would use, then you're getting into language island territory, and then that's actually really useful because then you'll use those. So yeah, in general, in my opinion, language islands, prepare your own sentences for all the likely scenarios. Uh, Take sentences from a big list of sentences already, a pre-made one for learning, so that you cover all your bases and you don't only learn your own sentences, because you might forget some important things there. And then you take sentences from the input as well, and you learn all three lists, so that your knowledge of the language is comprehensive. Not comprehensible, comprehensive. Someone was calling it comprehensible input, comprehensive input. No, it's similar words, but they don't mean the same thing. But yeah, you need to activate your vocabulary, right? And learning lots of sentences and drilling them and repeating them aloud over and over again, and also translating into the language. Once you've got your long list of sentences, you translate. You put in 2 columns and you read it in your language, and then you try to say it in the language that you're learning, and you check if you say it correctly. This exercise with these sentences, with your own sentences, or with sentences that you found that you thought will be useful. Doing this exercise translating aloud into the language, will be really useful to activate the vocabulary. Yeah, comprehensible input will be good once you've got enough vocabulary to keep reviewing the vocabulary and consolidate grammar and all that. But if you want to really speak well, do a lot of translating verbally into the language with your own sentences, especially. And that way you learn hundreds and later thousands of sentences that you will be able to use in conversation. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. See you later.